What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next, got about $2,000 in books here to unbox. Just two books, but one of them is a pretty big key or spec book for Doctor Strange. So I'm also going to go over 5 different books, 5 different keys that you can pick up for the upcoming Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness movie. So stay tuned. Alright, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So I've got 2 books in here, like I said. One of them is a Doctor Strange related key. And so what I've been thinking about doing recently is with the books I buy, since I pick up a lot of books, I thought I would talk about some keys related to the ones that I pick up just for upcoming either Marvel movies or potentially DC properties, that kind of thing. And this one of the books I bought is related to Doctor Strange, and so since we've got that Multiverse of Madness movie coming up, I believe on May 6th, I think that's when they push it out to, of 2022, there's still a little bit of time to pick up keys related to that, but not a lot, because some of them have definitely been moving up already. And so this is so these 2 books actually I picked up from Superworld Comics. I've mentioned them a number of times. I watch they have a weekly sale on Tuesday nights, and I like to watch that one. And this one happened to be from their sale on Elite Comics 11. Elite Comics 11 had a thing called AtCon, where it's kind of like a virtual convention. They have a bunch of different sellers, and one of them happened to be Superworld, and so I watched most of that sale and ended up picking up 2 books. And Superworld doesn't normally take offers, because they usually have their books priced pretty well already, and so they don't normally take offers. One of the books I bought for their like the full asking price, and the second book, when it got to the very end, they take offers if there's a little time left, and I made an offer on it, and they ended up taking it, so I felt I got a pretty good deal on that book. Now, one comment I'll make about when I'm picking up books on here, that kind of thing, it's not always that I think that is the best book to buy right now. A lot of times when I'm picking up a book, I'm buying it because I think it was a great price versus the current going prices for those books. So it's not necessarily the best book to buy at that moment, the most undervalued book, but for me it was a great deal at that time. Now, the first book here, these are books that I have just been trying to pick up for quite a while. The types of books that I've been adding to my kind of like keepers type collection. And this is Detective Comics number 124. And this is just this cool Joker cover. You've got Joker right on the cover there. So I believe this book is 1947, so not quite back into the World War II era, but Joker covers from the 40s are to me just great books to add to any collection, especially if you're a Batman collector like I am. And so this book has 52 pages, and so you can see here, there's definitely, you can see like some tanning around the edges. That top staple is looks like it's hanging on, but barely. Bottom staple actually looks pretty tight. That one looks good. So I'll do a quick flip through of this because I want to make sure all the pages are there, because they're not cheap books. So this one has 52 pages, so it is not like your standard silver, bronze, modern book with 36, but this one has 52. All right, so with 52 pages, that means that there's the covers, then 12 pages, centerfold, 12 pages. And so this one, here's the centerfold. You can see centerfold is attached. This is at 12 pages. Then there'll be 12 more, then the back cover. All right, so that they are all there. You know, everything's there, which is great. Now, one of the things that's always, you know, I think is interesting with Detective Comics is that they aren't all Batman. And so you can see the, be a little careful with this, but the opening page, it looks actually almost identical to the cover. The opening story is Batman. So the opening story is Batman, but then when you get to the back here, one of the later stories is Slam Bradley. So it's not all Batman on the interior. Eventually it does become all Batman stories. I can't remember which one that starts at, but they aren't at this point. Still in the 40s, you know, 1947, they're a mix of Batman and other types of stories. So yeah, I'm very happy with this book. There's definitely, you know, tanning and that kind of thing, but it's complete. And these early Joker covers, I mean, there's only so many of them. You know, there's only so many of them in the 40s, and I really like trying to pick those up when I get the opportunity to, and I felt like it was a great price. So now to the Doctor Strange book. So this one is one of the books that I will be talking about, and this is Strange Tales number 111. And so this is actually kind of a multi-key. You've got the second appearance of Doctor Strange, because his first appearance is in Strange Tales 110. And then you have the first appearance of Baron Mordo, who is one of the main characters in the first Doctor Strange movie, clearly becomes a villain and will likely be a villain in the upcoming movie. I wouldn't be surprised if we'll see more of him. And then you've also got the first appearance of Asbestos Man, you know, one of those awesome, you know, like sea-level villains who actually ends up dying of cancer. So, hey, you know, it's like a public service announcement for Asbestos. But this is a Silver Age book. This is 1963, I believe. And so this one will have 36 pages, you know, like your standard book. So I'll do a quick check on this one as well. Now you can see this book does have a little bit of Marvel chipping along that right edge. But in general, it looks pretty tight. It has nice gloss and everything. And do a quick check of the interior cover. It looks good. And we'll do a page count. All right, so there's the centerfold. Centerfold's attached. And we had 8 more pages, then the back cover, and then there's the back cover. So, you know, it's in general a nice looking copy. Definitely has a little bit of that Marvel chipping along the right edge. But that is relatively normal for books from this time period. It was just, you see that quite a bit, and they tend to not grade it quite as harshly as if it was other types of flaws. But yeah, looks like a pretty nice copy. All right, so those are the 2 books. So now let's talk about the Doctor Strange keys. So I've got 5 books I'm going to go over, and then I'll also talk about which books or book I think are the best to pick up. And so I say this with every video where I talk about speculation, but I don't really buy the smaller type of spec books. I tend to buy pretty major keys. You know, in this case, you know, this is second appearance of Doctor Strange, first appearance of Baron Mordo. This is not a cheap book. This is a pretty expensive book. Now, I like to buy books like this because there's always a pretty solid demand for the book, and they generally move up in price slowly, you know, over time, whether they're spec or not. I mean, books drop in price too, but you have some protection when you're buying major keys. It's also easier to sell the book if you want to end up, you know, ultimately selling it. Now, remember, with any type of speculation book or investment, that kind of thing that you're getting into, there's always the risk that prices will go down. There is no guarantee that any of this stuff will go up. You know, prices could crash at some point or whatever. You can't really expect positive returns all the time. So just caveat that. And like I mentioned in my last video that I did similar to this, when I recommend a book, I'm not saying just rush out and buy it at any price, that kind of thing. Look at recent prices, see where those books are selling, and make a determination for yourself if whatever that book is selling at is a good price for you to buy at that moment. It's not necessarily that you should go and buy all of these books or anything like that all at once. So make that determination based on recent prices. So with that, I'm going to talk about 5 different Doctor Strange books. Now, the first one is Strange Tales number 110. It's June of 1963. And obviously, this is a major book. This is a huge Silver Age key. It's the first appearance of Doctor Strange. It's the first appearance of Wong. It's the first appearance of the Ancient One. It's the first appearance of Nightmare. And you have that awesome Paste Pot Pete and the Wizard team up on the cover fighting the Human Torch. That is actually probably one of the reasons that this book doesn't go for as much as it should, because it doesn't have Doctor Strange on the cover or any of those major characters. Unfortunately, has kind of a crappy cover for this big of a first appearance. But this is a multiple key issue, which is always a big plus when you're buying one of these books. For the numbers on this one, there are only 1,698 universal copies on the census. Most common grade is a 4.0, and a year ago, a 4.0 was selling for around $2,000. Peaked at $5,400 in June, and the last sale was $4,257 in August for this grade. But there have been some other books that have sold more recently, so I would estimate the price of this 4.0 at about $4,750. And so with that book is up 135% from last year and down about 12% from its peak. So that book is still pretty strong. I mean, when I talked about some of the other speculation type books for monsters in one of my prior videos, I was looking at books that were down 30-35% from their highs. It's only down 12%, and so it's still up quite a bit from where it was. So while if you find the book for a reasonable price compared to recent sales, you definitely pick it up. But right now, maybe not the best book to buy. All right, now number 2 is Strange Tales 111. So this book right here. Now again, this is a multiple key. Like I mentioned, it's the first Baron Mordo, it's second Doctor Strange, and the first Asbestos Man. Unfortunately, again, you don't have Doctor Strange on the cover. You don't have Baron Mordo on the cover. So you're missing out on those two kind of big components. So unfortunately, you have the worst of the key characters on the cover for this book. But generally, I have been seeing second appearances move in tandem with first appearances. So if you want to get into a book for a character where you don't have thousands of dollars to spend, if you want to spend less money, second appearances are a great option. They generally move in a similar fashion to the first appearances with price. Now, this book, another interesting thing or big plus I think with this book is there are a lot less copies on the census. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's more rare. It could just be that less people get it graded, but there are less copies than even other books around it, other similar books from the run that are around it. Only 414 universal copies on the census. Now, the most common grades are a 4.5 and a 6.5. They're actually tied on the census, but the 4.5 has had more recent sales, so I'm going to use that for the numbers. Now, a year ago, 4.5 of this book was selling for $250. Peaked at $659 in June, and the last sale was $582 in September, and I'd estimate it as about a $600 book right now in a 4.5. But there have been some big sales for this book recently. A 7.5 sold for $2,600 on October 28th. So there's definitely some movement around this book. I think it's especially as that Strange Tales 110 has been getting more and more expensive. This is where people are really starting to move to those alternative books. Now, it is up a lot. It is up 140% since last year and down around 9% from its peak. So again, similar story. If it's a good deal, I would say maybe go for it, but not necessarily the book to buy right now. And that's what I was mentioning earlier, that I felt like this one was a great price. That's why I picked this up. But I felt like it was at a discount to recent sales, and so that felt like a good buy to me at this moment, but not necessarily the best book to buy for Doctor Strange right now. All right, now number 3. We're sticking in the Strange Tales run. This is Strange Tales number 115. This is also a multi-key, and so that's one of the big pluses with these first 3 books. is the origin of Doctor Strange. So you actually get the car accident story in this one. It's also the second appearance of Sandman. And so you get a big key for Spider-Man as well, because there's rumors that Sandman is going to be in the next Spider-Man movie. And so this is a good option, because that first appearance of Sandman in Amazing Spider-Man #4, you're generally spending over $1,000 for that book. But this is one you can get for quite a bit less. Now, there are 801 copies on the census. That's what I'm talking about, where in number 115, there's twice as many books on the census as 111. But like I talked about in my last top 10 video, this book, this Strange Tales 115, had a huge sale for an 8.5 recently, $2,400 for an 8.5. Now, the most common grades for this book are a 7.0 and a 5.0. 7.0 has 70 on the census, 5.0 has 69. The 7.0 has had more recent sales though. It was selling for about $450 a year ago, peaked at $749 in June, and the last sale was just $619 on October 30th. So I'm estimating the price of this book at about $620. And so that would put it up only 38% since last year and down 17% since its peak. So that one looks a little different than the first two that I talked about. So I would definitely be paying attention to Strange Tales 115 if you are looking to buy books related to Doctor Strange for this upcoming Multiverse of Madness movie. Now, for the fourth book, I'm finally going to move out of the Strange Tales run. This is Doctor Strange number 169. So it's only kind of out of the Strange Tales run, because that run goes up through issue 168, and then it changes its name to Doctor Strange on issue 169. And so this is the first issue for his self-titled series. And there are a lot more of this book out there. A big part of that being that this is a much later book. Just a lot more of them have been kept. It's also a pretty popular book. It's a cool cover, and just that first issue in the run, similar to Captain America 100, Hulk 102, Iron Man 1, Submariner 1. It's that first issue in their self-titled run, and that just tends to be a collectible book. Now, the most common grade is a 7.0, but it's followed real closely by the 7.5. And 7.5 has had more recent sales, so that's the one I'm going to talk about here. A year ago, 7.5 of this book was selling for $350. It peaked at $780 on October 6th, and the last sale was $690 on October 14th. So I would estimate it at about a $700 book right now. It's had some sales earlier in the year that were a little lower, but it seems to be generally on an uptrend. Now, that's up 100% since last year and down only around 10% from its peak. So still a book that is up quite a bit and hasn't really seen much of a pullback recently. All right, now the fifth book, the final book I'm going to talk about, is Fantastic Four number 27. Now, finally moving completely away from the Strange Tales run. This is the first crossover for Doctor Strange. You've also got the Fantastic Four. So that's two things I really like about this, because we know we've got the Fantastic Four coming in a movie. There will very likely be some interactions between Doctor Strange and the Fantastic Four. So you've got that key component of the Fantastic Four, early Fantastic Four. It's June of 1964, and it's also the first Doctor Strange crossover. Now, this is only 1 year after his first appearance in 1963, so it's still a very early Doctor Strange appearance. There are 685 universal copies on the census, and the most common is a 7.0. Now, a year ago, this was a pretty cheap book. This is only a $250 book in a 7.0, but it peaked at $730 on May 11th. That is a big jump. The last sale was $660 on October 7th, and I would estimate it at around $650 right now. So this is up the most of any of the books I've talked about, up 160% since last year, and it's only down around 11% from its high. All right, so with that, I'm going to put all of these books up on the screen next to me with all the little details about each of them. So I've got 5 books here: Strange Tales 110, Strange Tales 111, number 115, Doctor Strange 169, and Fantastic Four 27. You can see there is one book on this list that jumps out that is very different from all the rest of them, being a Doctor Strange key, and that is Strange Tales number 115. So that book compared to all the other books, all the other ones are up 100% or more, from 100 to 160% in their most common grades, have only come down around 10 to 12% from their peaks. Whereas this book, number 115, is only up 38% from a year ago, and it's down 17% from its peak. So it's dropped the most, it's gone up the least, and it's also a multi-key. You've got that important component of the Sandman in there as well, especially with the upcoming Spider-Man movie. So to me, the book to really keep your eyes open for, if you're trying to find a book to grab for this upcoming Doctor Strange movie, to speculate on Doctor Strange, I would be going after Strange Tales 115. So you've got the additional benefit of it being an amazing Spider-Man key and an early Spider-Man appearance. Plus, you've got the importance of that Doctor Strange origin. And so only up 38%, definitely the book out of these 5 that I would be going after for the big Doctor Strange keys. So with that, you can see this is kind of the process that I go through when I'm looking for undervalued books. You identify those different important books for that character and see if there's anything that jumps out as a really undervalued book, and in this case, Strange Tales 115 really did to me. So I hope you enjoyed this video, found it useful, maybe help you make some decisions on some books that you might want to buy moving forward. If you did find this useful, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. I've got more videos over here if you'd like to watch some of my other videos, and the subscription button right here if you'd like to subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.